It's Dom time. Now, Dom Giordano.
Welcome in, everyone. Dom Giordano Show. I'm noticing, Dan, we're doing this hour 2 on YouTube, right? And split screen.
Special case here, yeah, because we're talking with an international guest. And when that happens, sometimes it's just easier to do it on a web client. So, yes, we are live, youtube.com/@1210WPHD. Go like and subscribe and take a watch.
All right, we're going to talk live from Israel with Pierre Rehov. And Pierre is quite an accomplished guy, particularly when it comes to Israel and these various terrorist groups. Pierre, thanks for joining us here in Philadelphia on Talk Radio 1210.
That's my pleasure, Don. I'm very happy to be with you guys.
So, Pierre, just watching you here, you're calm. You look like a normal, everyday guy. What would drive you toward wanting to be at risk in this line of work and getting to the bottom of, I guess, the rationale of a group like Hamas?
Well, it happened about 20 years ago, 23 years ago. I saw the clip of Mohammed al-Dura being killed supposedly by the Israeli army, and it became a big part of the Palestinian propaganda. And I used to be a filmmaker and journalist, and I knew this was a fake. So I decided to get involved, and by then I was, I had my little company for publishing magazines, and I said, okay, why wouldn't I try to do that? So I went to Israel, started interviewing people, and guess what? 23 years later, I'm still doing it, and I'm still alive. And you go there step by step, baby steps. The first day you just stay in Israel. A week later, you're already in Bethlehem, which is kind of safe. And later on, you end up in Gaza and in Iraq with the American army.
So does it surprise you what happened on October 7th? I have every expectation that's what Hamas is about. But
Yes,
the detailed savagery of this, so much so that allegedly some of these people use various drugs to get them in the mood to attack women and children, and also violation of their religion. And they had to be convinced that it's fine to rape women brutally in this. Does it surprise you, someone with actual experience, of how savage this was?
No, absolutely not. First of all, it's not the first time it happened in history. If you knew a little bit about the region, you would know that in 1907, it happened in Oujda in Morocco. It also happened in 1929 in Hebron, where most of the Jews were massacred at the call of Haj Amin al-Husseini, who was the first Arab of Palestine leader. In those days, you wouldn't call them Palestinians, because Palestinians and Palestine as a so-called country was invented in 1964 by the KGB. But they were Arabs of Palestine, and the Palestinians by then were called, the Jews by then were called Palestinians. So in 1929, also they committed a massacre where they did about the same atrocities that they just did on October 7th. Then in 1941 in Iraq, you had the Faroud, also. Because Haj Amin al-Husseini was a close friend to the leader of Iraq, and he was also a Nazi. So he wanted to exterminate all the Jews of the Middle East, and he convinced the leader of Iraq to do the same. So there was also a massacre. So it's inside their culture. It's called a razzia. When they go to war, there is no limit to what they can do. And when people are telling you, well, Islam is a religion of peace and equality and justice and whatever, it is for some people. And actually, I have to say, it is for the majority of them. But when you're talking of a population in the world which represents about 1.5 billion people, and only 20% of them are radicalized and capable of committing those atrocities, it represents the population of America, 300 million people. So you have 1.2 billion people who are fantastic and great and following a very nice way of, following the rules of their religion in a very nice way. And then you have 300 million people who want to kill you and rape your wife and open the belly of a pregnant woman, which is one of the things they did on October the 7th, or put two children together, tie them up together and burn them alive, and for the parents to watch, which is also one of the things they did on October 7, or put a 6-month-old baby in an oven and rape the woman at the same time she would hear the baby cry because he was burned alive. This is the kind of things they do on October 7. So I've interviewed a lot of terrorists from Hamas, from Islamic Jihad, from Al-Qaeda when I was with the US Army in 2008 in Iraq, in Dura. But the guys who went into the kibbutz on October 7 don't even deserve to be called terrorists, because terrorists, as horrible as they are, they send planes, they destroyed the Twin Towers and they killed 3,000 people, and it's horrible. And they did the same thing in the Bataclan in Paris, and they did in London and in Madrid, but they kill. Those are psychopaths who enjoy killing Jews and non-Jews and Christians and Filipinos and Thai with their own hands, and torture them to death and burn them alive and burn the women and rape the women and rape the babies. Okay, we discovered that the babies had been raped as well. So we are not talking of human beings. We are talking of Hamas. Hamas is not made of human beings. They are monsters. They are demons from hell. Those people don't deserve to be called anything human. And I've shown the videos, 450 of them.
Yeah. So Pierre, how do they get to that point? I've only been to Israel once, and certainly I was in relatively safe, almost all the time areas, as far as I can tell. Bethlehem and places like that were a little bit. What is the solution? Extermination, I agree with what Israel's going to do with Hamas. What's the solution to take this out? Is it doable? What do you have to do?
Well, it's a complicated international situation where people have interest with Iran, and Obama tried to give whatever Iran wanted in exchange for promises, but obviously they wouldn't keep. Biden has been trying to do the same thing with Iran. Iran is just trying to take control over the Middle East, and they have their method to doing that. Okay, so you have all the money flowing into terrorist organization. The money is coming from Iran. The money is also coming from the Muslim Brotherhood, and you have in America a lot of members of the Muslim Brotherhood, and those people are very dangerous. What you can see in universities right now is not spontaneous riots. It's things which have been organized by sleeping cells from a long time. My good friend Stephen Emerson has been documenting that for already 30 years.
We know Emerson, Pierre Reav with us. I've had Emerson on a dozen times. So let me say, though, then, what is the posture? Somebody who's actually lived this in the cutting edge, what to do?
Well, it's a question of education. In the Palestinian territories, the so-called Palestinian territories, after the Oslo Accords, we let them take care of their own destiny. Israel withdrew from Gaza. Israel put Yasser Arafat was a terrorist in charge of the West Bank, also called Judea Samaria. And the first thing he did was to establish a fund to finance and pay salaries to the terrorists. The more Jews you kill, the more money you get if you're in jail, or your family is going to get it if the IDF has killed you. Okay, so this is the guy that Israel is trying to deal with, and who is going all around the world, is being received at the White House and in the Élysée in Paris, and by the Pope like if he was Santa Claus. But the guy is a fucking he's a terrorist. Okay, I hope you have a beep.
Yeah, Dan's on it. Our producer's on it. So to the chase then. Well, you're saying education, that Israel should take over the education in Gaza?
We should force them to have a country. They do not want to have a country. This is what the rest of the world doesn't understand. The Hamas in Gaza and the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, they do not want a country. As long as the conflict goes on, they make a lot of money. The two leaders of the Hamas altogether own $4 billion. It's more than Oprah and more than Donald Trump. They stole that money from their people. And the more of their people are being killed, the more they can show propaganda in universities, on American television, on French television, and pretend that it's the fault of Israel and make more money. The problem is that we have the same situation with Mahmoud Abbas, who is a gangster, with the head of the Palestinian Authority, and is pretending to represent the Palestinian people. And they have, this carrot and stick. If you are with us, oil will be cheaper for you. And if you're not with us, we're going to send terrorists into your country. So the West is at the same time greedy for this cheap oil and at the same time afraid of a potential terrorist attack on their soil. So that's the reason why the Palestinians are always on the front line and are always kind of promoted. And the reality on the field is not there. If they wanted the country, they could have had a country in 1948, in 2000, they could have had a country in 2008. They never wanted a country. They want either Israel, because Israel is built. It's a modern country. You've been to Israel, it looks like Tel Aviv looks like Manhattan. And it's a thriving country. The economy is fantastic. We have a lot of geniuses. We have a lot of Nobel Prizes. They are still believe that some of them believe that the earth is flat, and they are still cleaning themselves sometimes with a camel piece. I'm sorry to say, but I've been there. I know what I'm talking about. Okay.
Well, you obviously have. So
yeah, listen. It's a 21st century against people, not all of them. And I know a lot of good Palestinians. Right. Don't get me wrong. I have a lot of friends in the Palestinian territories. One of my best friends is Bassem Eid, who's been fighting for the Palestinian people, taking the Israeli side, because he knows the truth. He knows that the Palestinians get a lot from Israel, and much more from Israel than they will ever get from their own leaders. And that's a fact.
Okay, well, Pierre, where do people find your work? Where should our listeners go?
Well, I have a small internet site. I'm not here to promote my own work, but I'm here to talk about Israel and the reality on the field right now. It's not for myself, it's for humanity, it's for Israel, it's for the Jews. And they can actually go to pierrerehov.com. And if they want to see atrocities committed by Hamas, they can go on Telegram and check for Hamas atrocities. They will find a lot of those images that the left-wing people and that the pro-Palestinians pretend didn't exist and things didn't happen. It does, and it's available.
Pierre, thank you very much. Hopefully we'll talk with you again, Pierre. Enjoyed talking with you.
My pleasure, Dom. Anytime.
Pierre Rehov here on the Dom Giordano Show. Tip of the hat to Dan, the technology of bringing you him, both on the split screen together. It was great from Israel. Not easy to do. So my takeaway from that, Dan, is he thinks there are substantially even more people that are unconvincible on this, not just the 40 or 50,000 that are in Hamas. And I differ with him, though. He thinks giving them a state, a country, I guess. But the problem with that is it just becomes a bigger Gaza. And it's a non-starter for another century after this savagery.
I wish I could just redirect a crowd of pro-Palestinian protesters into a room and, on the loudspeakers, just play back that interview with Pierre so they get the truth of what exactly Hamas is doing out there.
And he started to get, even though he's a journalist, he got worked up. We get that. So thank you to Dan. Dan, coming up, I'd like to